Welcome to the tutorial for Rygar for the Atari Lynx. This is actually a pretty good game. Probably one of the best on the system. The system doesn't seem to have a lot of great games. This is based off of the arcade version of Rygar, not the NES version, which is a totally different game than the arcade. This game took me around, I think, 4 hours and 42 minutes to beat, so it can be tricky. I'll try to further elaborate on some things. Keep in mind that your weapon has to either strike an enemy or return back to you before you can fire your next shot. So that delay can get you killed if you're not mindful of it. I like to inch the screen slowly in a lot of parts and just, progress really carefully through the levels. Because enemies can spawn basically right on top of you. And on some later levels, you'll see me basically mashing the attack button as I just pretty much mash right so that I can just walk in very small increments but quickly. And by doing that, it seems to clear out a lot of the enemies, but occasionally you will still have to jump out of the way and maneuver around enemies, which you'll see me do. There's still... The trickiest parts are the parts where there's pits and birds are constantly appearing. And I'll explain more about that. I mean, the game is not that complicated, but I figured it'd be worth trying to explain and break down some of what I did. You do earn 1-ups for every so many points that you get. So throughout the course of the day, the game, you'll probably earn a few 1-ups. I ended up, I think, having like 5 extra lives remaining or 6 extra lives remaining when I beat the game. So if you play carefully enough and you do well enough, you can come out like that. It's better to be patient with the game. I mean, you can try to run through. You can jump on enemies as well. And as long as you're holding down the jump button, you can bounce off of the enemies. If you release the jump button, I think the enemy will kill you, even if you land on it. I think that's how it works. But if you hold the jump button down, you can bounce off enemies, and you can run and jump through a lot of the enemies if you want to. It is more of a risky and dangerous method, but you can do it. I was just playing it careful because I just wanted to beat the game. That's all. I was just going for, beating the game. So, like as I always say, when I'm trying to beat a game, I don't try to do anything flashy the first time. I just try to beat it. But yeah, of course, like whenever you see these little tombstones or whatever pop up, you want to go back and get them because you'll get points and things like that from that. I don't know how the power-ups and things work except for this disc that you see me throwing right now. You get that from that little sun type of icon that I collected, but I don't know what the other power-ups do. I don't know if they're even power-ups. I'm not sure what they are. There's something called rank that you get scored on at the end of the level. Maybe you get more points for filling up those 4 squares on the right with different items, but I'm not sure. All you really need to know is that, one button throws your disc and the other button jumps, and that's pretty much it. Sometimes you can press up and attack, and your disc will kind of go in an upward. If you stand while you're firing, at least with this sun disc, your disc will go up as you stand, so you can make it arc upward by doing that. You can change the direction a little bit with that by crouching and standing. When you shoot, you'll see you can play around with how the disc moves. I do use that sometimes, but it's not super important. It helps to know some of the little nuances, though. The bouncing thing on enemies, bouncing off enemies can be extremely useful. I'm sure if you wanted to speedrun this game, you could, just get used to bouncing off all the enemies and running through the levels. As you can see, this took me like 44 minutes, so this wasn't a fast playthrough. For this part with these birds, these dragons, there's a trick to it. Since the game seems to be in stereo, if you hear a little squeak sound in your left speaker, it means the dragon's going to appear on the left. If you hear one in the right speaker, then it's going to appear on your right. The reason it's important to keep track of those sound effects, what side they're coming from, is because sometimes you'll hear maybe 2 on the left and then 1 on the right. So since you won't be seeing the dragons right away, you'll know that there's going to be 2 approaching you from the left and 1 approaching you from the right. You want to know that early. Otherwise, it can be too late to react by the time they get on the screen. So, I found the sound cues to be very useful for the dragons. Also, what I like to do with these dragon enemies on these platforming levels is you'll see me jump off to the right and then back to the left a lot of times, and that's to lure them out. It's very dangerous if you try to just continuously jump, right, and just keep jumping and shooting, because whenever you shoot, your guy falls straight down. He stops in the middle of his jump and he falls straight down. So if you happen to shoot when you're above a pit, you'll fall straight into the pit. So it's dangerous to rely on that. So I'd rather just lure them out by jumping out to the right a little bit, then curve back to the left, and when you hear that little squeak, it means you lured it out. And then just wait for it to come on screen and kill it. And then proceed to the next platform. There's usually only one spawn of a dragon in a specific area, so it's easy enough to manage most of the time. There are some tricky parts with that, though, where you'll definitely have to get used to that, what I was saying. That dinosaur guy I killed, whenever you see those are great, because I've never died from one of those, and they're worth a lot of points. So I kind of consider these to be kind of like bonus levels whenever those guys appear, because a lot of times I'll get extra lives in the levels where they show up. Even though there are no bonus levels, they're usually easier levels, and you can rack up a lot of points. The rolling guys, they can be very dangerous, but inching the screen and pretty much mashing the attack button, you'll see me really do it heavily later, where I learned it was really useful later on. As the enemies get denser, I'll really exploit that, but I find that works really well. But you can't get greedy and try to walk too far. You really have to, at some parts in the game, you really have to stick to that if you want a reliable method. If you want to make it harder, you can go and try to jump over all the enemies and bounce on them and shit like that, but it's riskier to play like that. I mean, I'm sure I could have done it, but it would have, it probably would have taken me longer to beat. I probably would have had more deaths. See, sometimes guys will pop up and they'll be behind you, so you got to be careful with that. But I found by mashing the button, a lot of times they couldn't get behind me, because when they came up on my character, they'd get instantly killed by my disc. But you still have to be aware that if the disc hasn't returned to you, or if it hasn't hit an enemy yet, then there's going to be a gap where you can't throw it, and that can get you killed. So, it's definitely something. That's just something to keep in mind. But a lot of times, when I tap the button and just walk, inch by inch, very slow, and I mash the attack button, a lot of times that works for those straightforward levels. Now, for these pit levels, I recommend taking it slow and listening for where the dragons are appearing, either left or right side. And I would recommend killing them before you proceed. You can bounce on them and use that to get across pits, and you will see me do that. Sometimes I felt like that was the best thing to do. But it was just kind of a split decision that I would make sometimes when I was overwhelmed by the enemies. For these guys, whenever you go down in this cavern, a lot of times those guys will appear, that unique enemy, that unique dragon demon that you saw flying. You want to kill those immediately, because they'll drop missiles down. And you definitely don't want to climb up here while any of the dragons are still alive, because they will follow you up here, and you'll pretty much get killed, most likely. With the sun disc that I have, you can actually angle it upward and kill the dragon that shoots the missiles, but it's not worth risking that. If you don't have to deal with that, because if you don't have the right disc, then you can't do that. And he may not even appear in the right place for you even to hit him, so it's just better to kill everything before you go on that rope. Once you go on that rope, you cannot get off the rope. That's why you're pretty much fucked if there's enemies around. So you want to make sure you clear out the area. Yeah, and then for these guys, you have to hit them at ground level when you're ducked. So sometimes what was hard about this fucking game, strangely enough, was I'm playing an Atari Lynx game on a 65-inch screen. So at 5 feet, seating distance. So it was incredibly pixelated, and another reason I had to move slow a lot of times is it took my brain a while to discern enemies from the background pixels, because it was so pixelated. So, if you see me not playing the most aggressively that I could be, it's because it was taking my brain some time to recognize what was going on sometimes. So that's another reason I played it the way I did, but it wasn't that hard, but yeah, it's kind of tricky. The control isn't perfect either. The hit detection is sometimes weird. where I got hit by things that I didn't feel like they really touched me. But the most annoying aspect for me ended up being some of the jumps, because if you try to get to the edge and then press the jump button, you'll just fall off and die. It's one of those games where the edge jumping is really sloppy. So, you know, you have to know when to jump just a little bit early before the edge, but you have to get used to that. So I would say practice it with save and load states, since you'll probably be playing this on an emulator in 2018. So I would say, you know, practice with save and load states, and, you know, get used to those edge jumps so that you know when to jump. Now, if you can't do those jumps in some parts, you can wait for the dragons to come and kind of like bounce off of them and get across the pits, which sometimes I did to try to make you know, to make it more manageable. But I would recommend learning how to actually make some of those later jumps. I'll mention the jumps when they appear. They haven't shown up yet. There's some very wide jumps a little bit later on. I think stage 9 is the first stage that has the wide jumps. This part can be annoying. I would say, you know, take it slow and try to edge the dragons out, but sometimes they will overwhelm you. There's parts where you can't really lure them out slowly, it seems. See, I tried to bounce on that one, and bouncing can be unreliable, so I did die. So, I mean, it's not I find that's where the hit detection is kind of weird, too, is like, sometimes you'll climb up the enemy and bounce off of it, even when you're not directly on top of it, but other times you'll just die. So keep that in mind. I wouldn't rely on bouncing unless you're really, really good at it. But I try to get in front, and I try to keep this horde behind me. And I figured since there was all those sprites behind me, it might keep, you know, new dragons from spawning in front of me. That's what I was... Because I've done that in the Karate Kid for NES. I've done that in some, you know, old games. So I was trying to use that technique, and I think it kind of helped. I'm not sure if it does keep enemies from spawning, but I was doing that a lot when I played this part. I shouldn't have died on that stupid fucking part, but a lot of times I would die on one of those dragons, because it's just, there's a lot of them that come out. So I usually fuck up on that in some way. But I end up making up for it later. I don't fuck up too much in this run. I was actually, earlier in the day, I was pretty fucking nervous and twitching. I was fucking up a lot. I don't know if it was the, you know, the stimulants and the caffeine, but I was just, when I played this time, I was just like, I wasn't taking it that serious, because I had some other shit I had to do. I was just killing some time, so I figured I'd get in another attempt at the game. And I ended up doing the best on that attempt when I wasn't really, you know, fired up for it. It's not really good to overreact to what's going on in the game. I would explain what the power-ups do, but like I said, I really have no fucking idea. Except for that sun power-up, that gives you a better disc. That goes a little bit farther, but other than that, I have no idea what they do. So it gets dangerous here, but you can run. If you start running in one direction, you will outrun those rolling balls, so keep that in mind. You can outrun them and then turn around and start hitting them again, so, you know, you want to be ready to do that if you need to. I like to inch like you see me doing and just mash the button. And that will kill most of the enemies in these types of levels. See, even the ones that spawn on me are getting killed. So it's very fucking useful. If you get used to doing this, you can pull a lot of bullshit and survive a long time. But just be ready. If that does fail, be ready to jump immediately and get out of there and start running in the other direction so you can outrun the ball like you saw me do. You got to be ready to get out. If you got to recognize it pretty quickly that it's not working, and you got to get out of there. If one of them gets past your shot, and just get the fuck out and just run. But that's about it. I mean, it's pretty fucking easy, but it can go wrong. As a last ditch, also remember you can bounce on all these enemies. So, you know, if you're about to hit into an enemy, try to land directly on top of it and bounce off of it, so at least you don't die. You can kind of save your ass. Make sure you still have the jump button held down so that you bounce off of it and don't die on it. Because I think if you don't hold down jump, you may just land on the enemy and die, but I'm not 100% sure. I know that I was holding jump, and that seemed to work better when I was trying to do some of the bouncing. I didn't do a huge amount of enemy bouncing. I used it for some parts, but mainly for like the pit levels and stuff like that. But I wasn't... Yeah, this is where like it gets kind of tricky. Like, this level can be tough. There's some big jumps here, so... This is why I say... Remember, there is no momentum in this game, right? So you don't have to worry about running and then jumping to get a longer jump. There is none of that in the game. If you press right and jump, your jump length is the same. So it's going to be the same regardless if you got a running start or not. So see here, I bounce to try to get across, and I just kind of stay up on these guys for a while. See, and by doing this, I was able to get across that really annoying pit. That's a very annoying jump. Now, you can do it that way if you want, which, I mean, that's the way I would recommend doing it. But, you can also do it, as I said, just get used to jumping right before the edge, but you got to practice that. See, I was able to shoot straight up with that somehow by pressing up and shoot. I think the star actually allowed me to do it. I don't think it was, because I didn't have the sun disc, so I guess I could do it with the regular disc, but I needed that star thing. That's all. That's what I'm guessing. Maybe there's even a way to switch weapons with like select or something. See, there was no instructions on this, no game facts, nothing. So I didn't know if I could switch weapons or what. I did check a video to get a general idea, but I couldn't figure out if there was other weapons. But yeah, like I was saying, there's no running jumps in the game. So, I mean, you do have to be pressing right when you jump to jump over a gap, obviously, but you don't have to be running. You can do it from a dead stop. But you have to know where to jump from. That's the main thing. You know, you can stand still and but you need to know where you're going to have to launch from. These things you can kill in a variety of ways. You can not kill them and jump over them, obviously. You can jump on top of those fireballs and bounce off of them. You know, you wouldn't think that you could bounce on those fireballs, but you can, and it can be very useful for some of the later parts, where there's some hard pits that involve them. So yeah, you can either kill them with your disc, or you can bounce on them and kill them, or you can just, like I said, you can avoid them like that. It's up to you how you want to deal with them. You know, it can be very easy to just bounce on all three of them and take them out. You know, you can do that. That's just not what I was doing in practice, so I just pretty much stuck to what I was doing. I discovered later about that I could even kill the fireballs. I didn't even realize that the fireballs could be killed with my weapon, because a lot of times when you throw your weapon at them, if it's not a direct hit, it won't even kill them. Like, you'll see my fireball goes right through them a lot of times. I mean, not that time, but I mean, if you watch enough, you're going to see my disc will go through the fireballs a lot of times and not kill them. So, you know, I probably tried it early on, and I thought it didn't work because my disc went through it. But then I found out later that I could kill them. It made things a lot easier on some of the levels. But yeah, it's very easy to deal with them on this level. Not really a problem. You also do have a timer, so, I mean, I've been talking a lot about going through the stages slowly. But, yeah, now I should mention that you are timed. So, you know, you got to balance that out a little bit. You can't take your time too much. But there is a way, if you do time out, some kind of monster will come out on the left side of the screen and chase you. And all the other enemies will be gone. So you just have to outrun the monster on the left, I think. Actually, it might even be easy to outrun it, since I think all the other enemies go away. So you may actually, now that I think about it, it might be actually worth timing out the level so you can run away from the monster and not have to deal with the other enemies. I should probably try that. I'm kind of curious now. I never actually tried that. But if the monster does come out on the left, I believe you can also defeat it and make it leave by jumping on top of it. So if you can get up on a tree branch and land on top of it, I think it'll go away permanently. You know, if you run out of time and all that shit goes down. But I'll have to try just timing out a level and running through the level. That would have made the game really easy. I'm not sure if that would work. But it's something that you can try, because I haven't tried it yet. And yeah, of course, here you're going to listen for those dragons. You know, you'll be able to hear in your left or right speaker, as I was saying. And the same thing for like other certain types of enemies make sounds too. I think the flying enemies make a sound. The ones that drop these guys that run really fast. Those guys can be annoying because if you didn't it's so pixelated. If you didn't see them drop, they'll run right into you and kill you. So these guys, of course, are free points. So whenever you see these, you should be happy. You know, you'll probably get a lot of points off of them. There's not going to be a shitload to explain aside from the basics that are going to be applicable to all the different types of levels. There's only a few different styles of level, and there's only a few different types of enemies, so there's really not that much to explain. The final boss is extremely easy, so You don't have to worry about that. In fact, you really only have to worry about getting past stage 19. And then 20, 21, and 22 are very easy levels where I didn't even lose a life, at least in my run. And then 23 is the final boss, and it's a very easy boss. It really couldn't be any easier. I've never even died on it, even in practice. But so if you get past stage 19, you're pretty much good for the rest of the game. But yeah, here I'm starting to really inch, as you can see, because it gets denser. The game starts to get denser. You'll see me really abuse the, inching the screen really fast by, mashing right and mashing the attack button, basically, is what I'm doing. And it ends up being very effective for most of these non-platforming levels. See the guys, even if they get behind you, you have enough time to react and get out of there if you need to. It can get pretty fucking intense, though, you know what I mean? But as you can see, I got rid of the fire on the ground as well that hooded guy threw by throwing my disc and then ducking to make it go down. That changes the, keep in mind about standing and ducking while throwing the disc changes how it moves. I mean, it's a subtle thing, but it can be useful, when using it quickly in a situation, you can get out of a bad situation. You really don't want to miss your shots when you're trying to move fast and precisely because, the guys move onto you pretty quickly, and the hit detection's a little weird. I try to keep a lot of distance from the enemies in general. Because sometimes I would, you die in one hit, and sometimes I would die, and it didn't look like the guy really touched me. And remember, there's no continues in this game, so you start with maybe, I don't know if it's 2 or 3 lives, and you pretty much rely on the extra lives that you earn, because there's no continues, so it's a little bit of an endurance kind of run. But it starts to go pretty smoothly once you get familiar with the game. There's a lot of levels that end up being pretty easy. The reason it took me so long is because I didn't practice some of the harder areas enough, like the pit levels. And what would happen is I'd play for like 35 minutes and get to the end, like stage 19, and then I would die. And then I would play for another 35 minutes or so, get to stage 19, die again. Now, had I learned stage 19, I wouldn't have had to repeat all that shit, because after stage 19, the game's a joke. So, I did waste a lot of my time by having to start my runs over for dying on, I died on, stage 9 and lost all my lives. I died on stage 19, twice. So, that was wasting a lot of time. So, it could have been beaten, definitely could have been beaten quicker. I didn't practice shit enough like I should have. I did a very sloppy practice when I went through it. I used save and load state to learn the game, but I just kind of used it just to get through the game. I didn't really practice parts that much. So after I beat the game, there were still parts that I didn't really know how to do consistently. But yeah, this is more like a bonus stage. Like I said, I call these bonus stages with these whenever you see those large dinosaurs, because they're so fucking easy. They give you a lot of points, and these levels tend to be pretty fucking easy. I mean, you pretty much just mash attack and inch your way through the levels. And after you get 5 lives, it does not show them anymore. But you have them in reserve. What'll happen is if you have 6 or more lives, it just won't count down. It'll show 5 of them, but it won't count down until you're down to your last 5. I don't know how many lives you can stockpile. I'm not sure. The game doesn't seem to loop, so I guess you can only get as many as you can get points, but once I got decent at the game, I found I had more than enough lives. I mean, I had 5 or 6 lives left when I beat the game, I think. See, that's where time ran out. See that monster coming out? But I was able to run to the end fast enough. But, had I not, there's a big demon that comes out. And it seems like there is a way to... I saw someone in a video jump on top of it and it went away. I don't know if you can throw your disc at it and make it go away. I don't know enough about it, but I always ran away from them. I don't know if I ever got caught by one of them before, but I may have. At first I was concerned about the time, then I thought the time didn't do anything. See, that was sloppy. Those guys can be sneaky. Especially if your disc is not working because you threw it out. But this level is actually extremely easy. The only enemy is that enemy that's on the bird that drops down. So all you got to do is watch for that bird in this level and just take it out. And take out the running enemies. Just be careful because they do move very quickly, as you can see. So you got to be careful, but... Very easy level. Just, you know, just take it. Just take. Don't. You don't even have to worry about the bird. Just take out the guy that the bird is carrying. That's pretty much all you have to do for this level. But yeah, at first I was, you know, I was trying to move fast because I was worried about the timer. But then I saw the timer would go to 0 and nothing would happen. So I thought, you know, it was all right. It was just for the time bonus, so it's okay to run out of time. So then I was playing real slow. But I guess the reason I didn't see anything happen is because I made it to the end when it was still at 0 before the demon came out. Because the demon does take a few seconds to come out, so I didn't wait long enough for that. I mean, at least you don't die instantly when time runs out. You have some opportunities to redeem yourself, but it's better not to do it. They give you a decent amount of time as long as you're moving. The question marks sometimes give you like over 100,000 points, which... It seems to lead to a 1-up sometimes. I don't think they actually give you a... I don't think they ever like give you a 1-up directly, but I'm not sure. I have gotten 1-ups from getting them a few times, but I think it's because it gave me like a lot of points. But yeah, very easy level. There's no reason for me to lose that life in the beginning of the level, but I didn't even remember that this was the level with those enemies. You know, it's hard. They all look the same, so I never really remember. I never remember what level I'm on until there's a few levels that I'm kind of familiar with, like 9 because I died a lot on 9 and 19. But a lot of the levels I have no fucking idea what level I'm on when I get there. I don't remember that, you know, all the details of them. But I know the tricks that I've been using, you know, the tactics and the strategies, and that pretty much applies. The game is pretty similar all around. But yeah, just be ready for shit like that. I would take out these fireballs before moving forward. You can, of course, bounce on top of them if you want. But I was just playing it safe. But yeah, I mean, by this point, I already have a lot of lives. You know, at least 5, if not more. I haven't been keeping track. At some point, I think I had 6 lives or something like that. 6 additional lives, not counting the one that I'm actually, you know, using. But yeah, same as before. Make sure you kill that big demon before you go up the rope. And all the dragons. You want to eliminate all the enemies. Because otherwise you'll probably die here. Because you're pretty defenseless on this fucking rope. I mean, you can attack, but you can't move. So, and your attacks are not very good. So yeah, it's a bad idea to go on a rope with any enemies. I'm sure you can also get more points by beating the levels quickly since there's a time bonus. But I don't know if it's really worth it because I think you probably would get more points just by killing all the enemies if you can. Though I'm not really sure. I didn't try to calculate all that. But I know by killing most of the enemies I had, you know, more than enough lives. By the time I got decent at the game. Yeah, this is going to be another level where you just, you know, inch the screen and mash the button. And like I said, if a guy does get on your ass or something, just get the fuck out. You know, you only have like a very small amount of time to react to it. So be ready to jump and start, you know, jump out to the left and start running if you need to. And then once you have your distance, you can turn back around and start killing shit. But, you know, you may need to bust out of there, so just want to be ready for that shit. But it's actually very easy, but it gets a little intense. You know, you can get twitchy on parts like this because shit does pop up. See, like that. That can be very dangerous. Shit starts getting kind of wild. I think I may almost get caught in this area, too, or at least... I don't know if it was on this playthrough, because remember, I did multiple attempts, so I can't remember exactly what went down. But yeah, just play, you know, keep an eye out for those dragons that come from the left. You know, you should be able to hear them in the left speaker if they're coming out of the left side. And the right if they come from the right. I guess it's one of the early games where like surround sound was useful for locating your enemy. Not really. It's not really surround sound. It's just stereo. But I guess it's kind of interesting because it's like you know, play something like Halo or something. You know, you have surround sound. You can tell what direction the enemy's coming from. This is a little bit like that. There's only two directions, but you know. You also be sure to check out the version with no commentary if you just want to see the game and you know, hear the original sounds. I try to put out two versions of, you know, of each game I do with commentary. You know, the regular, just a raw video. It may have deaths edited out if it's that kind of game, but it'll just be, you know, the game sound, the game play, but no voice. And then there'll be a commentary tutorial where I try to break everything down. This game was kind of challenging, so I figured it would be worthwhile to do a tutorial on it. It's not going to be too complicated, but you know, it doesn't hurt. Maybe it makes it a little bit more entertaining. See, there I got surrounded. These parts can be tricky. So, you know, if you fuck up every once in a while on these, you'll be alright because you get enough extra lives. But you don't want to be fucking up, like losing like 2 or 3 lives or 4 lives on one of these stages. I mean, then you're definitely probably not going to beat the game. I mean, if you're draining lives on these levels. Because these are the hardest levels. 19 is another, like, of one of the harder ones. But, I mean, even this one can be tricky. There's a lot of shit that comes out. See how I jump to the right and then back? I'm trying to inch the screen. And when I hear that little squeal, I know a dragon is spawned. See, that's very dangerous to throw the thing while you're in the air like that. I barely made it out of that. But yeah, it's dangerous to throw the disc in the air when you're going over pits. Because like I said, when you throw that in the air, you drop straight down. So if you're right above the pit, you'll fall right into the pit. So you do have to be aware of that. I mean, I was doing some dangerous maneuvering, but I felt like I was kind of getting cornered with all that bullshit going on. But I made it out pretty well. You know, only losing 1 life wasn't too bad on that part. That can be a pain in the ass. So yeah, after this is going to be one of the hardest levels, and then after that, the rest of the game is pretty much a joke. So, by this point, you know, you just have to beat this level. I think this is a straightforward level, and then you'll have the hardest level. But if you have a decent amount of lives saved up by this point, you'll have some room to fuck up on level 19 if you need to. You know, I mean, of course, you don't want to fuck up, but if you have enough room to, you know, to lose a few lives. I mean, look, even if I lost all my 5 extra lives on level 19 and I was still alive, I would have been able to beat the game because I don't think I died at all after stage 19. So, and it's not like I had those levels practiced and memorized. I probably had only played those levels like once before. When I did my first run with the save and load states, I kind of just ran through them. So I didn't get much practice on them at all. So they're quite easy. So just take this level slow and just, you know, like I said, just mash the button. This is like a bonus level with all these dinosaurs. I mean, you'll get a shitload of points. I always, like I said, to me these are like bonus stages. Because I usually end up getting a 1-up on these levels. I think sometimes I've gotten several 1-ups, but, you know, probably at least 1 on a lot of them. So just take this shit slow. And the next stage you're going to have to, you know... That's one that you may want to practice with save and load states. That's definitely one that like I said, that was one that ended like 2 of my runs at least, where I'd get to stage 19, and you know, and then I'd die, lose all my lives, and have to replay the game again. So that would be 35 minutes lost each time, you know, to get back there again. So I'd recommend practicing stages like stage 9 and stage 19, and any of the levels really with the pits you should practice because they can all be dangerous. So it's worth practicing, you know, pretty much all of those. And here I think I was... I didn't have my keyboard with me. I was actually saving state because I figured there's a good chance that I might fuck up on this stage and lose all my lives again. Even though I did have a lot of lives, it probably wasn't going to happen to where I'd lose all my lives, but just in case I made a save state. Because if I failed this run again, I was going to practice stage 19. You know, I was going to practice it and try to get it down. Because I didn't really practice it. Like, I didn't really isolate it and practice it. I don't think I isolated it at all and practiced it. Maybe I did a little bit on my first run through the game. I'm not sure, but... Because my first run was like a save and load state kind of run. Like, after my... Like, I had a failed attempt, but then... After I failed the game once, then I started practicing through with save and load states. So you can jump on these fireballs. This is the hardest, one of the hardest stages. And you can bounce on these guys. And I didn't really do this in practice, but when I got here, I just improvised. Because I was like, fuck it, man. Because I was like, this shit is getting wild, you know what I mean? And I accidentally grabbed the rope, which was the big fucking mistake. I was not trying to do that. I was trying to, like, back away from the enemies. But if you touch the rope, you're going to grab it. And now I think I probably get killed here because, you know, I'm pretty much... I can't shoot up. So eventually he's just going to drop a missile down on me, and I'm going to be dead. If I had the one power-up, I guess, that allows you to shoot up, then you can shoot the disc up by holding up. But since I didn't have that, you know, there was nothing I could do there. And then he was still there. Usually the enemies disappear, but you know, I was able to get up to the top. Once you get up to the top, the game allows you to win. So the enemies die if you get all the way up to the top. But that's a good explanation of why you don't want to touch that rope when enemies are still alive, because you'll probably end up dying. I did get out of it once in this video, but you can see that's only because I had that power-up that allowed me to shoot upward. You know, without that, you know, you're pretty much fucked. So yeah, now the rest of the game is like really fucking easy. So, you know, just take the stages slow. You'll probably earn extra lives, if anything. I don't think there's any reason to die on these stages after you've beaten, you know, if you've gotten this far already. It's unlikely. As long as you don't start trying to, like, run through and rush things. I don't remember there being anything any more aggressive than some of the other levels. It was the same type of thing. Yeah, and you'll see once you get to the boss, it's a joke. So, you know, there's really nothing here that's going to present any kind of problem. But yeah, this is a pretty good game. I thought it was a solid game. It's not a great game, but for this system, I think it's pretty damn good because this system doesn't seem to have a lot of great games on it. It doesn't have a lot of games, period, but it doesn't seem to be a lot of, like, you know, really good games on the system. Though I have to explore it more. I haven't played a shitload of Lynx. Stun Runner was a lot of fun. I enjoyed that a lot. That was a very good game. It was a good port for being on, you know, this system at the time. The arcade version, of course, is the best version, but, you know, it was the Lynx version was pretty damn good. Yeah, and the next two stages are kind of like, they feel kind of like identical. They just feel like bonus stages to me, pretty much. There's no jumping or anything that I can remember. If there is, it's very simple fucking platforming. You know, nothing that's going to give you any trouble. Yeah, see, and here you get lucky enough to have two dinosaurs right off the fucking bat. So, you know, if you haven't earned the 1-ups, you'll probably, you know, there's a good chance you'll get some 1-ups. Though by this point, I don't know if you get 1-ups after 1,000,000 points, because once I hit 1,000,000 points, I didn't seem to get 1-ups anymore. Not like it mattered, though, man. I had at least, you know, 5 extra lives. So, like, if I died, I still probably would have had 5 more lives left. So, I mean, you know, I pretty much knew that I beat the game by this point. After stage 19. I was, you know, pretty sure I was going to beat the game. I'd have to really fuck up to drain all those lives after stage 19. That wouldn't really make any sense. I wouldn't fucking be surprised though, man, because like when I'm twitchy, I fuck up really easy shit. That's why I really have to balance my nerves sometimes with these games. But I was calm when I played. That's why I did well this time. I did much better because I didn't really care too much. I was pretty relaxed. But on my earlier attempts, I was a lot twitchier, so I was fucking up on stupid shit, getting overwhelmed by the enemies grouping up on me and shit. But here I was just being patient. I mean, it took me long enough to beat the fucking game. I mean, I'm sure I could have beat it a lot faster if I ran through the levels. But I didn't give a shit. I just wanted to beat it. But yeah, it can be pretty challenging. It's not super hard or anything, but it's kind of tricky at points. It was worth doing a commentary, I think, to try to explain some of the details. But yeah, there's only there's one more easy stage now. It's very fucking easy. And then you're home. You're pretty much home free by this point, man. I mean, these stages pretty much seem like the same to me. I mean, there's like very little difference. It's like they got really fucking lazy after stage 19. They were like, "Fuck it, let's just pretty much duplicate the same stage like 3 times in a row or some shit." I mean, I'm sure the stages are a little bit different, but I mean, they do feel pretty fucking similar. You just want to make sure that when you jump up on those ledges, don't drop down until you have a clear gap, obviously. You don't really want to drop down on top of the enemy. I mean, that's kind of obvious, though. I mean, there's not much I can really fucking say, man. I mean, it's pretty simple. I do try to explain things in detail, but sometimes it's kind of redundant. But yeah, by this point you probably know how to play this game if you got this far. Yeah, the final boss is going to be super simple. You actually have to walk kind of far before the boss appears, but there's no enemies. It's kind of unusual how long you have to walk for, but yeah, once you get to the last boss, all you got to do is jump, hit him in the head, and just, run away, basically. You can even jump on the boss. You can climb up the boss and jump on him without taking damage, as long as you're holding down the jump button and you land on a specific part of it. I think if you land too low on the boss, you won't climb up or jump up on him, but I recommend not jumping on the boss's head. Just keep your distance and, try to shoot him in the head and then move away. Shoot him in the head, move away. Jump up, shoot him in the head, move away. Jump up, shoot him in the head, move away. That's all you got to do. It's super fucking easy. Like I said, I've never died on this boss in practice. I've never died on this boss in the run. Though I only really dealt with him twice. Once in my practice run with the save states and once here when I beat the game. But regardless, it's pretty hard to fuck up on this guy. Yeah, so you'll walk for a while. They give you a shitload of fucking time as if this is going to be some epic fucking battle or something, but yeah, it's going to be over in a few seconds. But yeah, pretty cool game. I gotta say, I did have fun with it. It's cool discovering some stuff on Lynx, a system I never played or owned. So it's great about emulation. But yeah, you see what I'm doing is very simple here. He's very slow. He doesn't do anything except jump around that I could see. I mean, I definitely killed him before he had a chance to do anything else. I don't know if he would have. See, I bounced off of him because I was holding the jump button. So as long as you're doing that, you should be alright. And it's very fucking easy. But yeah, thanks for watching. I hope this was entertaining or helpful in some way. And let me know feedback if you want me to play through some other games, do tutorials or whatever. I'm open to all kinds of feedback. So thanks again for watching.